I'll take a stab at this first. So I think when I was diagnosed, of course there's an element that you're not only your parents, but your family, your immediate loved ones become overprotective of you, right? They don't want any additional harm to come to you. They try to make your life as it was before. Obviously, there's going to be differences. Doctors, what you can, what you can't do, abilities, how your emotions. But I think your family steps in to try to, like you said, normalize that, right? And unfortunately, it can't always be so seamless, but your family will try to be a buffer to, I guess, the reality of it. So I would say that acceptance and knowing that your family is there to support you and is there to accept you, include you, and embrace you, I think that's huge. And talking about your clients, I know people as well that they're not accepted by their families, and their parents are like, I want my child to be normal. How do I make my child normal? And I think, being born and brought up in the US, I think the psychology is a little bit different there. It's a little more broad. So there's a little more acceptance in general by doctors and hospitals and families and bystanders and whatnot. But that support system is really crucial for the child, because if they don't feel welcome, especially by the people closest to them, which should be the parents, it's much more of an emotional, psychological impact that the child has to, struggle and wrestle with.
Yeah, yeah. What about you, Madhu? What do you think about that?
So, uh, you know, for my parents, yes, it had been a very difficult journey because at that point of time, they hardly had any information available, right? And being in India, it was also very difficult to get information from other resources, right? Whatever your doctor says, you have to believe it, right? And you don't have a choice in that. Now, one good thing that happened, I would say, is the pediatrician I had at that point of time. So for him, what he noticed was, and what he told my parents were, uh, don't stop her from doing anything. If she's able to do it, let her do. Let her
Yeah.
do whichever days she can. Don't push her too much for anything. Don't stop her from doing anything as well. Right. So what I did was the days when I was not well, they didn't push me further, right? And I was really not well. So there was no way that they could have pushed me as well. But the days I was fine, I could live a balanced life even in those 10, 15 days a month. I could, go to school. I could play with other peers, uh, to whatever extent I could, right? And they never stopped me from doing anything in life, right? And that's the reason probably where I am today,
Yeah.
right? Right. However, they did protect me a lot more because, you have
Of
to protect your child from getting sick. So
course.
don't
Yeah.
do this, don't do that. That was there in terms of, playing with water as a child or, doing too much. Because whenever they saw that me doing a little too much, when what they felt was too much, they would stop me, even though I didn't feel it, but they would stop me. So that was a
Yeah.
part which was there because
They
protection
try
is
to
a huge
strike
thing.
their own balance, it
Yes,
seems.
yes. And also the other part was, so I have an elder sister and she's just 3 years elder to me. So even when I was diagnosed, even she was very young, right? So my parents had to constantly, juggle between the
Yeah.
two kids and raise them up, making her understand that I am not well. And what I later noticed is, yes, as a child, I couldn't probably follow those subtle signs of stress and, anxiety in them when I'm not well. But when I grew up, I did notice that even though they are not saying, they are stressed out, right? They're probably having sleepless nights. And
Mm.
even if I start coughing once, they would just run from the other room,
Mm.
right? So they are that alert throughout. And
Mhm.
that does take a toll on them. To an
Yeah.
extent, I'll share an experience that whenever I would have a cough and cold, so and the cough would be so bad that I would barely be able to grasp a breath, right? Slowly turning blue in the process, not being able to swallow. So at night when I would sleep, all of a sudden, you know, if I wake up, sometimes I would see my sister's face on top of me. And I'm like, okay, what are you doing? And she's like, no, I'm just checking that whether you're breathing or not.
Mm.
And it's
That's
that,
so painful and so full of love and care at the same
yes, and that's the kind of stress that the family goes through. However,
time.
my family, the extended family of mine, so on the day of marriage, I remember I'm standing at the dais. I could hear some of the extended family members who are attending the wedding saying that, oh my God, this family is so great that they're accepting her. And I'm like, "Okay, what
Okay.
the hell is
Mhm.
this going on? That's so mean. And
Yeah.
so, although your family, a lot of the families do accept, sometimes you do get these, differentiated treatments from the extended families who don't necessarily know you or understand you or even other
Yeah.
people in your life. So, yeah, that does happen.
Yeah, that does happen. Like the external world,
Yeah,
that can be really brutal at times, I'm assuming.
absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah. Yeah. So that also brings me to the question of we're talking about also different emotional experiences of isolation, anxiety, at points helplessness, loss, right? What about anger?
Oh,
If
yes.
you think, yeah, okay, please go
Yeah,
ahead. I
yeah,
see
please.
you're already
So, I mean, anger, initially, I was like, okay, why me? That was the kind of
by
phase.
me.
And, just the loss was so much that it was difficult to digest anything that is coming to you, right? But the anger was more evident for me when I finally got my diagnosis. And after 31 years of not knowing what it was, when I got the diagnosis, and that too, I had to push my doctors a lot because they were just not ready to, even agree that let's check if there is something, right? And
Yeah. And I
despite,
remember you mentioning how you had to tell your own doctor what scimitar syndrome is.
yes, 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 there are a lot of them. That continues even now, even now.
Okay.
So I had to push them constantly that, I'm not fine. These symptoms that I'm having right now, these are not normal for me, right? There is something going on, and you need to check that. And they would constantly brush me up saying that, no, your lung reports are absolutely normal. There's nothing, right? Just do some meditation, you'll be fine. Just do some
Do
relaxation,
some
you'll be fine.
meditation, you'll be
Yes,
fine. Okay.
yeah. And
That's
I
quite
mean, there was
some dismissive
absolutely, and
statement.
I mean,
Yeah.
this is something that we all go through, I would say. This is another aspect of it which makes the journey very difficult to handle because you're constantly dismissed about your symptoms, right?
Mm.
So I had to tell them. So there was one point when I told them that no, this is not okay. Is there
Mm.
something else which is going on? So they pushed, they said that, okay, just go and meet a cardiologist and, maybe then you'll be fine. Maybe then you'll be rested, right? So when I went to the cardiologist, he saw the scans, he saw the echoes. At one go, he found out what was wrong. He
Mm.
found out the condition of the heart. He found out the scimitar syndrome.
Yeah. For which
And
you had to fight so hard.
yes. And if I hadn't, fought, I wouldn't have gotten my diagnosis even then. And that makes me angry. That really makes me angry because for nearly around 6 months, every single day I had to struggle with chest pains, breathing difficulties, not being able to do the basics of chores, right? And still I was being constantly dismissed. So eventually it took a couple of more months to get the final diagnosis. So that entire period, I would say I was full of anger. And when I go back to a lot of my prescriptions, childhood x-rays, prescriptions and all of that, uh, this condition was mentioned as one of the possibility for my lung hypoplasia
Mhm.
from a prescription when I was 9 months old. Okay.
So there was a possibility of this happening 30 years back in time.
Yes. And every time we have met a doctor, we did show all those prescriptions. And the anger is nobody paid even the slightest of attention or even care to check it that, okay, is it this? And
Yeah.
they now tell me that if this was diagnosed when I was an infant or in my early childhood, I would have gotten a, heart surgery, a correction surgery for connecting all the arteries and veins which are misplaced in their right position, and my life would have been absolutely different. And that triggered me a lot. I just cannot
Mhm.
describe how much, Soumya, but it was just a lot to handle.
It was, yeah. Yeah.
You know? Yeah, anger is, of course, when you are neglected. So I hear a lot of these kind of cases from my clients as well that, uh, they were dismissed so many times that you don't have a symptom, right? It's
Mm.
just a mental health condition. You're probably having a psychosomatic condition and you're imagining your symptoms, right?
Yeah.
And it's not
Yeah.
a bodily thing. And it's just so, you know, demeaning that you feel
It
something
is. It
and
is.
you're
Yeah.
not given the due, uh, you know, acceptance or the importance that it needs.
Mhm. Yeah, I guess it's also to do with the visibility of the condition at some point, which I'd like to talk more about. And but I also want to ask Alma, what has your experience been when you think of anger in your own personal journey?
Um, anger is a big part of my journey, even today. However, I think the object of my anger has shifted quite a bit. So I think the first 2 or 3 years, um, it was definitely why me, like Mandu said, and I think a lot of people with challenges with life altering or life threatening conditions will say, actually, no, I want to take that back. When I was diagnosed, I think my uh ignorance that I had of how my diagnosis would affect my life, it didn't really bother me. So until the age of 13, I didn't really have any anger. The anger came more when I became a teenager. It took me well up till my 20s. The why me, it came with all the negative emotions, like why me, the isolation, the anger, the sorrow, the sadness, etc., etc. Then after that, once I started accepting myself, it definitely wasn't a kind of a lightning process. It took time for the acceptance. My anger slowly shifted to, okay, I can't do this, so I need help and I expect you to help me. So my anger now is focused on people. It's not focused towards the heavens or towards the Almighty or towards anything existential. It's more focused on myself. I want to do this. Why can't I do this? And then that anger boils up and it spreads out to the people who are indeed trying to help me, but they can't because I'm a perfectionist. So I put myself and then I put others to a standard which is not really achievable all the time. So anger is still definitely an issue that I face. And it's interesting, Madhu, because if you recall, this is the same question I asked you as well about anger, because this is something I face on a day-to-day basis.
Yeah. Again, both of you are smiling and talking about it because, of course, this is a podcast conversation, but I really want to know see, we talk about words like resilience, strength, and, embracing, but what gets you to those big loaded words is what I want to know. Yes, you guys are resilient. Yes, you guys are living a great life. As Alma also you said that you're living the best life that you can. But what got you to this space? What helped you work through these emotions?
Because Soumya, I think the question is yes or no, right? You either, well, I think for me, the question is yes or no. Either you succumb to your disability, your disease, your condition, and succumb to all the negative emotions, why me, anger, hatred, and let those infest you. So that's one aspect. Our other aspect is live with it, make the best of it. Because really, so you only have one life to live, right? You can live it dying or you can die living, right? So the choice is up to you. And I think people like Madhu and definitely me, I've had to make that choice again and again so many times in my life that's where I think the resilience and positivity and the other big words that you mentioned, that's where they come from, because we don't necessarily have the choice, right? We have to, it's yes for us, and if it's no, then we will basically suffer the consequences, which may be close to dying in some cases.
Yeah. I want to know a little more specific of it. I really want to get to know more specific of it. So let's say a person who's not where you both are right now, yeah, who's not reached that stage of actually getting in touch with that resilience, that strength. Describe me maybe a situation where you really had to make that yes or no choice and how it went for you. How you had to think, what kind of support you had to summon to make it a yes. And this is for both of you, I mean, whoever wants to.
So I'll answer that first, Soumya. So, what I've learned from my journey and also, of course, my education as well. So the first step that helped me to reach where I am today, or even uh, just laugh and smile every day, right, was the acceptance of the condition, right? Yes, as I said, that you don't have a choice. You do not have a choice. So, as Alma rightly mentioned, you either succumb to it or you make something out of it, right? No matter what that is, but make something out of it. So, accepting my condition is something that has really helped me. And this is also something that I would refer to. I had one client uh, a few years back, I would say, a girl in her mid-20s. All of a sudden, she was having an absolutely fine life, normal life, mid-20s, 26, 27-year-old lady, just about to start her work career, right? She started falling sick, and eventually she was diagnosed with a rare condition called idiopathic intracranial hypertension. Okay, so what necessarily happens there is there's a huge fluid buildup in her brain. Okay, and if that fluid is not taken out as quickly as it needs to be, it could also lead to permanent blindness for her.
Oh,
Right?
okay.
So imagine a life of 25 years, 26 years, all of a sudden you are diagnosed with a condition, and then you are told that if you're not able to manage this, you will go blind, which means that you can't have a life the way that you wanted it, right? So it was very difficult for her to even make peace with that. I have a diagnosis. And
Yeah.
the time that she came in to me was a point when a doctor said that you have to manage your stress levels. If you don't, it is going to aggravate, and there's no way we can stop it. And for every time the fluid has to be taken out, they need to do a lumbar puncture. There's a puncture
Mm.
in her spine to take the fluid out of her, entire cervical spine. So we had to work a lot around accepting her condition, changing the life a little bit around the condition, making some adjustments because life isn't the way it is as it was a couple of months before, right? So some normal adjustments, like she needs a little more rest. She needs to make sure that she's sleeping on time, she's resting properly, no matter
Mhm.
what work she is doing. But she's doing the stress management techniques to help her stay calm, even at times when she's getting triggered. That really helped
Mm.
her. And eventually she could uh, handle her condition so beautifully that right now, a couple of weeks back, she just messaged me that she is staying in a different city all
Mm.
alone, all by herself, uh, you know gotten into a career that she really wanted
Yeah,
to and she was aiming for, and she's really happy doing that, right? So that acceptance is
big
something that
thing.
I
Yeah.
feel really matters.
Yeah. I hear a lot of times, at least my clients, there's a general perception that acceptance means giving in. But
Mhm.
is it the same case that you hear with a lot of your clients that if I accept it, I'll succumb to it and I won't be able to do anything about it?
So mostly they come with that thought process,
Mhm.
right? But when we work around that, when we work around, the fears about what does giving in really mean to them,
Yeah.
right? So when we work around that, eventually they do understand that it's not that you have to just let go of everything. You
Hmm.
can make a life, a fruitful life, a meaningful life, finding a purpose of your life with what
Hmm.
you have
Yeah.
with you.
Correct. Mhm. Ah, acceptance. What comes to your mind, Amma?
Um, acceptance is crucial. Um, uh, my gut was telling me when you asked that question, Samya, was that you are talking to two people who have had the luxury of time to exactly what Madhu said, to accept what we have. Talk to people who are 2, 5, 10 years in,
Mm.
you probably won't get the same reaction. It's that, I mean, I, uh, going back to your question of examples and how I face it, I still face it today. When
Mhm.
I'm depressed, I don't want to, for example, I don't want to go to the office, or I don't want to dress up, or I don't want to go out to eat. I don't, like, I just want to interact with you. I just want to stay home and watch TV and, just basically, basically, not do anything. So, but, I don't have luxury of doing that. If I stay home and I binge watch TV, or I binge not eating at all, I face the consequences of decreased mobility
Mhm.
within one day. If I don't eat, I'll have so many amounts of fatigue. So for me, it's a day-to-day challenge, right? Every day, it's a yes. From every day, I'm faced with a yes or no. And if it's no, then I just get one step closer to death, or I make it harder for myself. So if I choose no, the next day I have to choose two yeses, meaning I
Mm.
have to work doubly as hard. For example, if I'm lazy and I'm tired and I'm fatigued, and I said, oh, today I'm just gonna have someone push me in a wheelchair. When I get out of that wheelchair 4 or 5 hours later, my muscles will be deteriorated. It's going to be more difficult for me to walk. So that question of acceptance uh, um comes to me every day, because like I said earlier, we're forced with certain things. Things are snatched from us. And that happens to me till today. You know, it's for me, almost every day I'm faced with the life or death question, right? And like Madhu said, acceptance is not that you're gonna succumb to it. Acceptance is okay, I have this. It's like making lemonade with lemons, right?
Mm.
The sourness, the bitterness, what are you gonna do with these things?
Mm.
Well, okay, maybe it can't be 100%, but you'll do whatever percentage you can, right? Rather
Yeah.
than just, you know, fly
Yeah.
windless.
Yeah, yeah.
So every day some choices have to be made. Every day consciously you have to convince yourself to do something that will take you to a better day. Otherwise it
Yep.
can take you another way. And I wonder that right now we're just talking about you, but all of us, we exist within culture systems, right? We cannot ignore that part. So what is it that you struggle with when you step out of the house, be it with your friends or the society at large, that if right now someone is listening, an able-bodied, neurotypical person who has had all the privileges of those things, what would you like to tell them of this, do better, do differently?
I will take a step back first. So the biggest thing that bothers me, or that really impacts me, is the societal how society approaches people like myself. That was something that I struggled with hugely since I was growing up. And that's why I'm a disability awareness activist today, because I feel that regardless of what your disability is, invisible or visible, whatever it is, the impressions society has through media of you and the way society looks at you, the way society looks at you is the mirror, right? So if society shows you a very negative picture, that's what you're going to take home. And depending on how resilient you are or not, that's going to hurt you psychologically, emotionally,
Absolutely.
right? So fortunately, I was not hurt. But today I can take a stand and I can make a difference about saying the awareness society has in general about people with rare diseases or conditions or with some kind of ailment or disfiguration. It definitely affects the person who has that challenge, right? And it doesn't just peripherally affect them, and it really affects them, right? Psychologically,
Absolutely.
emotionally, mentally, and it's kind of life altering.
Yeah. Can you give me some examples of some questions that have been like just brutal, or even not to the extent of brutal, but just disrespectful, that you would not want a person to ask or say?
So, I mean, I haven't really gotten questions. I mean, they've been so random since I've been growing up. But I remember when I was a child, one of my colleagues, one of my schoolmates said, made a comment when the teacher asked me to, get up and show my presentation because to showcase what I did. One of the guys was like, mimicked me and said, oh, she's too tired, you know. So that bothered me. Also as a child, I was also told that, oh, why she looks so drunk, you know? And that was in the US. But here in India, just I think 10 years ago, just the way people looked at me, you know, even now when kids ask their parents, what's wrong with her? Why she walking the way she's walking? It's just, the awareness shift, is definitely there. And I see it within India. Let's talk about India since we are here. Um, but I think there can be improvement because I have lived it. I know the impact of it. And I know had my peers, had society been a little more gentle, I would have been more gentle with myself, right? And that's, as psychologists, you know, the most important thing is how you treat yourself, right? That's gonna define how you treat society, how society treats you, and so on and so forth. So that's why I decided if I make any change, it should be in the awareness society has for people such as myself.
Yeah. So would you say that suppose you are out and you are just doing your own thing, and you know you've mentioned how people have questioned or kids have made a question that why is she walking like that? What is wrong with her? Are there different sort of questions that you would like to be asked, or would you just want to be left alone for God's sake?
No, I mean, number one is people are scared of what they don't know. So if they don't know, they're afraid of it. Number two is people are always curious about things that are different if they're not afraid of them, right? So I think questions are definitely required. Questions are definitely needed to make people learn, but I think it should be done in a gentle way. If people ask me directly, you know, why are, you know, what's wrong? Like maybe even what's wrong, or why can't you walk, or, you know, I on the spot, I can't really think of anything, but I think just if we start with kids, right? Because that's our future. If they just know at the get-go, if they're taught that there are, just like there are different genders and there are different races in the world, there are different kinds of people. I was a mentor for one girl who had a cleft, and when I went out with her, the remarks that people made, like Frankenstein walking on the sidewalk. I was on a scooter and I almost wanted to run that person over, because that's not only is that offensive, but that's just rude. You know, that's someone's face, you know. So I found that very obnoxious.
Yeah. Yeah. Thanks for sharing that. And please take your time. If you remember any other questions, I would actually ask gently to you that you appreciate it. Yeah. Until then, Madhu, what do you think?
Yeah, definitely. So, as Alma mentioned, questions are definitely required, right? But the way it is asked matters more, right? Things that are told to me. So, most often, the kind of remarks or the questions that I get is, if at all there are situations that when I have to tell them that, I have a condition, I can't do this or something like that. So they would be like, oh, you don't look like being so sick. And that's like a remark that, nobody expects, nobody would want to have. So, I mean, do you really need to look like something to be sick, to be considered sick? So, uh, that's one of the remarks that I really, it on one side it amuses me, on the other side it's just so disgusting, I feel. So, however, yes, if they ask me questions that, okay, what is the condition? Or, if even if they notice that, okay, I'm not being able to talk for a while, at a stretch for a longer period of time. If you ask me that, what is it? Are you having a difficulty? I would gladly share to raise that awareness, right?
Mm-hmm.
But at the same time, it's not always, right? There has to be a balance of in asking questions or even our initiative of making an awareness, right? And also there are times when you need to leave us alone. It's
Hmm.
not that we
Yeah.
are always 24/7 ready to raise a.
Yeah. Yeah.
So some balance, some more empathy is something that I feel is really necessary
Yeah.
as a societal change, because honestly speaking, I've met a couple of people, I've talked to a couple of clients, the kind of stories that they have shared with me, it's really horrific, right? I remember a young girl who was just studying in her college, right? So she had a brain stroke when she was 9 years old.
Hmm.
Okay. So what it did to her was she had something called as dystonia. And
Mm-hmm.
so
Mm.
on and off, she would not have a proper way of walking. And that was the only symptom which would come in. And it was not even very defined, right? So from her professors, she has also gotten remarks like, okay, so whenever you don't feel like doing an assignment or you feel that it's too difficult, you start showing your health conditions as a reason to
Hmm.
it. I mean, that's not something which anybody with a condition would want. If
Yeah.
they are trying their best, provide that little support at
Yeah.
least to them so that it makes it a little easier for them. It's already too hard, a life that they are living.
Absolutely.
Right.
Yeah, that makes sense. And I'm just summarizing what two things that I heard was first, if you have questions, always check in. If you have the bandwidth, would any of you want to talk about it? Because it's not like you need to do advocacy 24/7. Sometimes you just want to be on your own. And then if you do respond as a yes, be gentle and curious with your questions instead of being interrogative and just pointing fingers and making rude or disrespectful remarks. Yeah,
True. Yeah, yeah.
yeah, perfect. I'm also being mindful of the time as we are already, oh, we're over time already. So I'm going to quickly start wrapping up as well. And the only last question that I like to ask all of my podcast guests is what is something that I should be asking you about your respective rare conditions or rare conditions in general that I haven't already?
I mean, I think to sum it up, I think I would say those of us with rare conditions are those of us with conditions, period, are those of us with challenges aren't really different from the rest of you. And we shouldn't be treated different. Yes, like Madhu said, you may need more breaks, may get tired quickly, may have different way to do things, we may have different ways to think, cope with things, but like Madhu just said, her day-to-day life is not different from normal persons. And I think, again, that goes back to the awareness, right? Societal awareness. So that's what I want to sum up.
Thank you. Yeah, pretty straightforward. What about you, Madhu? What's something that I should be asking, but I haven't?
Yeah, so I mean, something that really, strikes me is, as Alma mentioned, that we are not very different. We are human beings with bodily functions which are running. It probably is running a little different from all of you, right? Everybody else. Now, you don't need to make a lot of adjustments probably for us, right? But at least ask what could be done to make it a little more easier,
Yeah,
right? Whatever that is, right? Uh, so that is the only thing which really makes life easier for us, I think.
yeah,
Just just a bit of empathy, not sympathy, just a bit of
yeah.
empathy
Empathy,
and
absolutely.
understanding that, this, okay, they have something different. maybe the requirement is slightly different. And it's not that they don't have the capacity. They will
Yeah,
probably with a little more support. So just be a
absolutely.
little open, have that question. That's it.
Mm.
Perfect. Thank you so much for coming on today and staying over time with me, both of you. Quickly checking in for the viewers. If someone wants to approach you or seek some service professionally that you're providing, what is it that you offer and how can they reach you?
Okay, I'll start. Again, my name is Alma Chopra. I am a life coach. I'm a motivational speaker and I'm a disability awareness activist. You can find me through my website, which is almachopra.com. Writing is there. And then I have social media, Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn, all associated with my name. So you can approach me for advice, for a life coaching, for any disability activism that you require or that you want to know about. And I am a resource.
Yes, perfect. And I'll link your different handles, social media handles in the show notes for anyone who wants to reach out, follow,
Great.
talk. Perfect.
Great.
Welcome to you, Madhu.
Yeah. So for me, hello everyone. My name is Madhumita Bhattacharya. I am a counseling psychologist by profession, and I counsel people with chronic diseases and rare diseases, among the other areas of specialization. So, if anybody wants to reach out to me, you can always reach out to my LinkedIn profile, which goes by my name, Madhumita Bhattacharya. You can also reach out to my website, which is mindbodyally.com, where mind and body comes together. So
Yeah.
you can reach out to me there and my social media profiles as well for any inquiries. I run individual counseling and support groups as well for these populations.
Perfect. Thank you so much. I'll link that in the show notes as well. And on that note, again, thank you so much for coming, spending your evening with me, educating me for sure, and many others who's going to be listening to this, watching this. Thank you.